here, and the hurricane is really well off your screen and should continue to the north until finally it should get into the cold waters of the North Atlantic. However, there is always that slight chance that it could turn back to the east, and if that happens, you'll hear it from us first. We'll come running. Right now, we have light rainfall out of this area of low cloudiness throughout the eastern portion of the Ohio Valley, reaching down into the southeast, and there's still a few showers of a heavier magnitude along the southeastern coastline, across Florida, back along the Gulf Coast, and back here into South Texas once again. Heaviest rainfall in the country last night was here in the northern plain states, across portions of South Dakota and Nebraska. You see the bright white cloudiness now here over Iowa, southern Minnesota, and moving into Wisconsin and northern Illinois. This produced some very nasty thunderstorms in Nebraska and South Dakota last night. Alliance, Nebraska reported some very large hail. In the far west, nary a shower to be found. Now, we may see a few showers popping up a little later in the day, particularly here in the northern Rockies as this low-pressure trough drops to the south. But I think the weather's going to stay rather stable in the far west. Let's take a look at the CNN Color Radar summary. We get back to this area of rainfall moving out of South Dakota and Nebraska over into Iowa and southern Minnesota. You can see the few scattered showers out of that area of low, light cloudiness and a little heavier stuff down here in the southeast and South Texas, too. So our forecast weather map then for tomorrow indicates as the frontal system continues to drift to the east, it'll carry the rainfall with it. I don't think early tomorrow you're going to see a lot of rain, but by tomorrow night we will see a lot of rain along this front. In Kansas, you're in for it again. Last night was your respite. Enjoy tomorrow too, because I believe that by tomorrow night we're going to see heavy thunder showers reaching from the central plain states up into the northeast. This map for tomorrow morning. That's the latest look at the weather around the nation. We'll have more coming up later. Right now, take a look at forecasts for cities around the world.
The most acclaimed nature documentary in the history of television is now available on video cassette. Witness nature in all its awesome power and deadly beauty. Time Life Video and WNET announce the Nature Video Library. A series so remarkable, the New York Times hails it as television at its most impressive. Your first video adventure takes you to Hawaii, islands of the fire goddess. Born in the conflict of fire and water, Hawaii is a land of amazing contrasts, a kaleidoscope of color, a menacing land of sudden death. This is Hawaii as few have seen it. Call now to receive Hawaii at the low introductory price of only $9.99 plus shipping and handling. Other exciting video cassettes will follow at only $19.99. Keep only those you want. Cancel at any time.
Credit card customers call 1-800-682-3600 now to get your first video cassette, Hawaii, at the special introductory price of just $9.99. Or send 1322 to Nature, P.O. Box 1880, Department 2, Alexandria, Virginia. Or call now, 1-800-682-3600.
It's college football time again, and time to examine it in depth. The key players, coaches, and of course all the critical matchups. Hi everybody, I'm Dan Hicks. I'll tackle those issues and look at the week's top teams on CNN's College Football Preview, 11:30 Eastern, Saturday.
Nine months after Soviet Armenia was ravaged by an earthquake, 500,000 people, many of them children, are still looking for permanent homes. But Armenians and other countries are giving these children a chance to forget that devastation. The BBC's Bill Turnbull has more.
From Armenia to Acton, the nightmare of the earthquake could hardly be more distant than this quiet West London street. But despite appearances, for these youngsters, it's still very much a traumatic reality. They are without proper homes or belongings, and most tragically, without families. The earthquake on the 8th of December and the shock waves which followed flattened the towns of Spitak, Leninakan and dozens of other communities. The recovery has been painfully slow. Survivors are living in tents and metal containers. Rudolf Agavegian was so shocked by the scenes of destruction when he visited his old country, he paid for this trip to Britain for 15 orphans.
The most important thing is for them to be away from that devastated areas. When they go out in the morning, they see the buildings which are still standing up, but there are ruins. Every day is in front of their eyes what happened to them. We make them gather together once a week. We take them around and try to make them forget at least for 1 month what happened to them.
And there's plenty to help them forget in the form of toys, sightseeing trips and parties. Staying with Armenian families here, though, has also helped the children recall and yet somehow relieve their own personal tragedies. Anita is 14. She was at school when disaster struck. Her village was at the very center of the earthquake.
At home, I lost my mother and 2 sisters. My father was already dead. Now the only people left are myself, my brother and his family. If I'm with my friends for a few hours, I'm happy. But when I go home, I remember my dead family and relatives.
The sadness soon fades, though, especially after a warm welcome from 100 British-born Armenian scouts at their annual summer camp. These young people have led very different lives, but they're quick to make friends.
Oh, I think deep down there is a link between us all, because and with them here we can make the bonds stronger and form ties with Armenia. As it's so far away, this helps just to bring them closer and make them know that we feel as much grief as they do.
Hundreds of young Armenian refugees like these have traveled to different countries this summer for a well-deserved break. Sadly, though, after the warmth and comfort of their reception abroad, returning to the harsh realities of home may prove to be just one more ordeal in their troubled lives.
That's it for this edition of the CNN International Hour. For Gene Randall in Washington, I'm Ralph Wenge. Coming up next on CNN, the Navy concludes its investigation of the explosion aboard the USS Iowa, and it says a gunner's mate may be to blame. That story coming up next.
Newsday is next, followed by Newswatch, here on CNN.
Everyone has a favorite photo. Share yours with us. Send it to Ad Express Cable Channel 13 and let us put it in the spotlight. Ad Express Spotlight. Each week we'll pick a photo at random and display it on Ad Express Cable Channel 13. If you see your photo, call and win. It's that easy. So put your favorite photo to work and send it along with your name and address to Ad Express Spotlight, 61 Myrock Avenue, Waterford, Connecticut, 06385. Then just watch Ad Express Cable Channel 13 to win.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties, above the fleeting plains.
America is burying itself in over 500,000 tons of trash every 24 hours. If you're not recycling, you're throwing it all away.
Yo, Alf here. Apparently some chowderheads out there aren't taking care of this planet. They're messing up public lands. They're littering the beaches and vandalizing the parks. Look, folks, public lands are not like pizzas. You just can't pick up the phone and order more. So let's take care of our land. Let's save the planet. Call me and promise you'll help. I'll send you a bunch of neat stuff. It's my way of saying thanks. It's an acknowledgement of your concern. It's a bribe.
Linder Dodge Jeep. Broad Street in London is overstocked, and you'll find the best buys on a large selection of Dodges and Jeeps at the lowest prices. Remember, nobody, but nobody, anywhere at any time can sell you a new Dodge or Jeep for less. Linder Dodge Jeep, highly committed to customer satisfaction, serving the New London area for 43 years. Linder Dodge Jeep, Broad Street, New London.
It's gotta be a Linder.
Of Turner Broadcasting System.
The Navy closes the book on the USS Iowa explosion, concluding that a gunner's mate killed in the blast most likely caused it. Hello, everyone. This is Newsday for September 7th. I'm Cheryl Jones.
And I'm Don Miller with more on our top story. A $4 million naval investigation of the April 19th explosion on the USS Iowa points a finger at one man, gunner's mate Clayton Hartwig. Hartwig, along with 46 others, died in the explosion. In explaining their findings today, Navy investigators showed this simulation of what happened. It shows that the Navy believes Hartwig placed a detonating device between bags of gunpowder. Navy investigators say they could find no accidental cause for the explosion, but they did find deficiencies in procedures, and they say circumstantial information points to Hartwig.
It is the conclusion of this investigation that the tragic explosion on board USS Iowa on 19 April was caused by a wrongful, intentional act. Most probably, the insertion of a detonating device between powder bags 1 and 2 behind the projectile. And that gunner's mate second class Clayton Hartwig was the most likely person to have introduced that detonating device.
They gave no motive for Hartwig's action, although there were earlier reports that Hartwig was homosexual and had a falling out with another sailor. But the Navy says it will never know what really caused the blast because the key witnesses are dead. Clayton Hartwig's family, however, rejects the Navy's findings. A 3-member team outlined the Navy report to the Hartwig family earlier today. Hartwig's sister says she's heard nothing new in the report and believes the Navy wrongly portrays her brother as twisted.
If you could just see it from our viewpoint, I mean, if you, it's such a shame that they had to hang it on a kid like this, because what they did, the investigators, they turned, I believe they really turned inside out his love for the Navy and his naval career and turned it into some kind of dark obsession and made it something really gross, you know, and that's just not true.
Hartwig's family wants a congressional investigation into the Navy's probe.
In Washington today, President Bush honored the people who helped save the lives of 184 people on United Flight 232 when it crashed in Sioux City, Iowa, July 19th. The president shook hands with the flight crew and air traffic controllers at a White House ceremony. Earlier, the 4 people who helped guide the plane when it lost its hydraulic controls talked about how they did it. Pilot trainer Dennis Fitch, who came into the cockpit that day to help, recalls the scene.
When I stepped into the cockpit and saw the situation in terms of the flight control positioning and the fact that, in fact, the hydraulic system indicated that everything was zero, not fear, not anxiety, but disbelief would be a good word. And that lasted about 2 or 3 seconds. And then I said, look, this airplane's flying. It's not doing what we want to do, but it's still in the air. We have engines, and we get to work.
All of them say they plan to fly again and consider the DC-10 a very safe plane.
A Colombian national accused of being the leading money launderer for the Medellin cocaine cartel is now being held at a secret location in Atlanta. Eduardo Martinez Romero was extradited to the United States this morning aboard a DEA plane. CNN's Pat Etheridge has this report.
Martinez arrived before daybreak under the tight security of U.S. Marshals and federal drug enforcement officials. He was then ferried by helicopter to the U.S. Federal Building in downtown Atlanta. At court proceedings later in the day, U.S. Magistrate Joel Feldman read Martinez his rights. He appeared calm, but when advised of the general nature of the charges against him, Martinez, speaking through an interpreter, said he did not fully understand and asked for more time to review the indictments. His request was granted, and the arraignment will be delayed until Monday. Until then, he will be held without bond in an undisclosed location.
Whatever special security measures have to be addressed are being addressed and will be taken.
Martinez, who has an advanced degree in marketing, is considered a key player in the powerful Medellin cocaine cartel. His highly publicized arrest in Colombia and subsequent extradition to the United States are viewed as clear signals to the drug barons that both governments are serious about doing battle head-on.
This case is a good example of where the United States government has put together the resources of the various investigative agencies and combined them to attack a large, major problem in the drug importation business.
The 36-year-old Martinez is known as the cartel's treasurer. The charges against him include laundering money made from cocaine sales in the United States, engaging in illegal interstate and foreign transactions, evading U.S. income tax laws, and hiding the source and the nature of the cartel's finances. All the result of an undercover operation known as Polar Cap, which began in Atlanta and evolved into the largest investigation of money laundering ever conducted by the federal government. Given the recent rash of violence triggered by the crackdown in Colombia, U.S. authorities are concerned and tight-lipped about security measures here.
All I can say is that whatever needs to be done will be done.
So while Martinez's immediate fate is uncertain, it's clear for now he's squarely on American soil. And in the words of one administration official, he's just the first one of a new policy. Pat Etheridge, CNN at the U.S. District Courthouse, Atlanta.
Colombia is now offering big cash rewards for information leading to the arrest of 2 other reputed members of the Medellin cartel. Commercials have begun appearing on Colombian television, flashing pictures of the alleged drug traffickers and promising the equivalent of $250,000 for each of their arrests. The suspects are Pablo Escobar Guevara, believed to be the cartel godfather, and Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, believed to be the number 3 man. They're on a list of 12 Colombians most wanted for prosecution in the United States.
The Senate has voted to give up one of its perks and transfer the savings into a fund to treat crack babies and get their mothers off drugs. The measure, which still needs House approval, bolsters the Bush administration in its fervent rallying cry against drugs. The measure would cut back on mass mailings to constituents, $45 million worth, and put the money into a special fund. Senator Pete Wilson of California, who offered the proposal, says mass mailings are just as addictive as drugs and that it's time for Congress to kick the habit. President Bush kept up the tough talk on drugs today during a speech to the American Legion Convention in Baltimore. Directing his comments at those who scoff at his drug strategy, Mr. Bush said that kind of thinking has lost too many battles already. Mr. Bush's point man in the drug battle, William Bennett, worked the crowd on Capitol Hill.
It is important to capture kingpins. It is important to make seizures of cocaine. It's important to make arrests and prosecutions. But these are all means to the larger end in this strategy, and that larger end is the reduction of drug use.
Bennett testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on details of the drug war strategy and where to find the $8 billion to pay for it.
Just ahead on Newsday, a manhunt is on in San Francisco for a pair of 10-speed thieves.
And as the Jim Bakker trial continues in North Carolina, Tammy Faye says she'll take her husband's case to the Supreme Court if need be.
I feel that any judge who thinks that we're going to have to appeal has already made up his mind that we're guilty, and I think that is prejudice.
What you're about to see is a sim. Brushstrokes, runs, streaks. Now consider the new Wagner Power Painter. It has patented controls for precision, a convenient backpack for big jobs. It paints smoothly and evenly over cracks and tough surfaces. Why did we ruin this beauty? So you wouldn't ruin this one. Wagner, not just a whole lot faster, a whole lot better.
Constipation is disaster, and that's the honest truth.
Jean Wright talks about constipation and Dulcolax laxatives.
I can depend on Dulcolax because it takes care of my constipation problems in a gentle, easy way. My doctor suggested that I try Dulcolax. And I did, and I was very happy.
Dulcolax suppositories can work in 15 minutes to 1 hour. Dulcolax tablets predictably overnight.
I wake up in the morning, and I get complete relief. Dulcolax brightens my day.
Now, here's a perfect fit. A nice big sandwich in a Ziploc pleated sandwich bag. The only one with a zipper and a pleat to hold more. A zipper and a pleat. That's what this dress needs.
Put your trust in a Ziploc bag.
I hand-picked these berries myself. Now they're going in a Ziploc freezer bag so they'll stay fresh-tasting for months. It was easier picking the perfect bag than the perfect berries.
Put your trust in a Ziploc bag.
Hi, folks. I'm Multi-Purpose Pivots. Tough towels and powerful cleaners. All in one. I wipe out tough, greasy dirt wherever I find it. Try me and the 4 other Spivots.
That's right.
We cut the work down to a wipe.
Today, should gay couples be able to use the battered spouse defense in a murder trial? A judge in Palm Beach tests the waters in a controversial trial. The story on CNN's Newswatch, 5 p.m. Eastern, today.
Now, back to Newsday on CNN.
Police in San Francisco are on the lookout for 2 would-be hold-up men. They're wanted for an attempted armored car robbery this morning at the Bank of America in the city's financial district. One Brinks guard was shot and killed. A second guard and a pedestrian were wounded. San Francisco police say the suspects wore white baseball caps and ski masks and escaped on 10-speed bicycles.
Jim Bakker's fraud and conspiracy trial resumed today. He says he's sick and tired, but ready to face the rest of the proceedings. CNN's Jeff Levine has more.
Walking hand in hand, Jim and Tammy Bakker arrived at the federal courthouse together. It was the first time the Bakkers have appeared here since the trial began. While Jim Bakker continued his struggle against fraud and conspiracy charges on the inside, Tammy Bakker was fighting the battle on the outside. She claimed that her husband was tormented and humiliated during his incarceration at a government medical facility following his mental breakdown last week.
I feel he was put there to try to break him down and break down his will to fight this court case and this trial. I cannot believe that the government of the United States would allow a judge to do something like this. I'm urging people to call the Justice Department.
Jim Bakker is charged with misusing some $4 million in contributors' money. He was sent to Butler, North Carolina for psychiatric evaluation by Judge Robert Potter after Bakker's attorneys said he wasn't mentally competent to stand trial. Bakker has recovered sufficiently for the trial to resume, but Tammy Bakker says the judge is treating him unfairly.
That he has said in the court many times, I may not be ruling this correctly, but you can take it up on your appeal. And I feel that any judge who thinks that we're going to have to appeal has already made up his mind that we're guilty, and I think that is prejudice.
Bakker's spouse and TV partner also insisted that former PTL employees were lying about her husband to gain government favor. Meanwhile, inside the courtroom, William Mayberry, the former manager of the ministry's Heritage Grand Hotel, testified Bakker occupied the facility's presidential suite for 6 months. That in spite of the fact that there weren't enough rooms for the ministry's lifetime partners. The government says they were defrauded of the $1,000 they paid for 3 days lodging per year for life in the Grand Hotel and other PTL facilities. In his second day back in court, Bakker seemed alert. He conferred with his attorneys and showed little hangover from his mental collapse of last week. Jeff Levine, CNN, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Embattled priest George Stallings flatly denies newspaper reports he had oral sex with an altar boy 12 years ago. It was an impromptu defense. Stallings was on the phone with CNN's Larry King Live, talking to the Washington Post reporter who wrote those articles, but then he refused to the TV studio to defend himself.
Father Stallings, you've said that you are innocent of this charge. Do you mean specifically that you have never had sexual relations with a young man or with a man at all?
Bill Dedman, I said I wouldn't respond to you at all.
That's a fair
I
question.
continue to hold. No, I told Bill Dedman and I know how we stand. I told him I do not deal with sleaze reporters and journalists.
Hold on, Bill.
And I won't answer it.
I
won't even talk to him.
If you say you are...
I won't talk to him.
Right,
I won't talk to him. I'll walk off the set.
Okay, he's not here. He's not here. Okay.
No, I won't. I'll pull this info out.
That's a cop-out.
I want everybody to know that. Bill Dedman knows I won't talk to him.
Wait a minute, hold on. If you say you're innocent, it means you did not do what the Post said you did.
Well, why doesn't he tell him? I said that already.
Stallings has been suspended for defying the Roman Catholic hierarchy by forming an independent church.
A Denver woman who was raped, brutally beaten, and locked in her burning home escaped to identify her attacker. Police say the victim was hit with a hammer, stabbed, tied up, and left in her basement yesterday. The assailant then set fire to her house. Blindfolded and bleeding, the 30-year-old woman managed to escape from the basement crawl space of her burning home. Inside, police found Donnie Next Door scrawled on the wall in blood. Denver police are searching for 18-year-old Donnie Russell. The teenager, whom the victim has known for 2 years, allegedly got into her house by asking to use her telephone.
A fan who stalked actress Justine Bateman was arrested after threatening to kill himself at a theater where she was performing. The 39-year-old fan kept police at bay with a loaded gun for 3 hours outside the Berkeley Theater yesterday. He said he would shoot himself unless the actress talked to him. Police say the man imagined an intimate relationship with the former co-star of the TV show Family Ties and had tried to contact her twice before.
A member of our staff spotted the person in the courtyard. At first he was just spotted there, and then it was ascertained that he actually had a weapon, and at that point we evacuated the theater of all staff, and the police were contacted.
The fan was taken to an Oakland hospital after his arrest. He is now under psychiatric observation.
A 33-year-old quadriplegic in Atlanta is preparing to die after a judge said he could turn off his life support machine. A motorcycle accident left Larry McAfee paralyzed from the neck down. For the past 4 years, he has been kept alive by a ventilator. Yesterday, a judge in Atlanta granted McAfee's wish to be allowed to shut off the machine.
And the rights which have been confirmed and declared by this court to be held by Larry James McAfee may be exercised at any time from the time of this order without any further order of this court at the sole discretion of Mr. McAfee. It is so ordered.
Judge Johnson ruled that McAfee's right to refuse life-sustaining treatment outweighed the state's interest in preserving life.
Coming up, a report on cholesterol changes during menopause. And we'll continue our series on doctors who look after the superstars in sports.
Something is coming to your neighborhood. Something to help you save money and make some. It's CertainTeed fiberglass insulation. Every bag rewards you with a more comfortable home and the chance to save on energy bills. Right now, you can get $1 back for every bag you buy, up to $30, with the CertainTeed Bakker Bundle rebate. In a remodeling project or in the attic, CertainTeed is a roll you can take to the bank. CertainTeed, at home in America's smartest homes.